think we're still in Reish Nun in the last paragraph. Remember, we ended with the analogy of the horse and rider, and my exaggerated and embellished story about my horse riding with my son-in-law. It was a false story based on a true one. What? Yes, I was very athletic growing up. Yeah. V'zei yichol l'das achar asher ha'olam ha'elyon mishamesh la'olam hatachton. Once we have concluded that the lower world serves the higher, the physical serves the spiritual. Actually, he gives an example. Kagon hashemesh v'hayarech v'kohavim. For example, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Bevadai ubeverur ein ze lahanas haguf shihane bahanas olam hazeh ki ein bo mamish. It's clear and certain that it seems to be saying the purpose of the body is not to derive pleasure from this world. Ki ein bo mamish, because there's nothing real about this, about it. The body, meaning it's insignificant. Vu ofar rima v'toilea, because the body in the end of the day is dust, and it's worms, and it's maggots. Umezuman d'figoim, and the body is subject to harm. Umuchan namus, and it is earmarked for death. V'shemesh v'yarech v'kochavim hem zakim utzlulim, but the sun and the moon, the stars, they are pure. V'chitechen she'oisa ha'inyan ha'godol yishamesh leguf ha'kolev v'medoldal. How can we conceive of the idea that something as pristine, grandiose, and constant as the sun and the moon and the stars would be created, whose purpose would be to serve something as fleeting as the body? Achanashama shehitzlula v'zaka. Turning up to the next page, Reish Nun Aleph. But the soul, which is very pure and clean, umenusa'ah, and elevated, ad l'shechakim v'ma'ala mehem, up into the heavens and even higher than them, ugdoyle yoser min hashamayim v'aretz kiva nichneses yediyah shamayim v'aretz. And the soul is even greater than the heavens and the earth, because, as he explained earlier, there is included in it, it contains a comprehension of the earth and the heavens, so it's greater than both of them. The soul, which is the source of our enlightenment, intelligence, encompasses these things, and therefore it's greater than them. And this is certainly an idea and a great proof that the sun and the moon were created in order to serve the soul. So if I could rephrase or paraphrase what I think he means to say is that it's clear that the world, the created world, was not created to serve our bodies. Why? Because the created world is much greater, much more grandiose, much more long-lasting than our bodies. However, the world is less than, it's smaller than our souls. So his point is that creation was created in order to serve us, but not our bodies, our souls, our spiritual component. That's his point. Everything that was created to be subservient to us, but not our bodily aspect, our spiritual aspect, the soul. When we say that the world, that the world was made to be subservient to us, that we were made masters over the world, he's making a distinction which we really understand, I think, but it's a matter of wording, yeah? But he's just pointing out, of course, that it's not that the world was created in order for there should be, for example, food to feed my body. That's not really the point. Of course, food is there and it does feed my body, but the purpose of the food is not to feed the body per se. It's to keep the body alive so that the soul has a vehicle through which to live in this world. So ultimately, therefore, everything that is in the world, even if it serves our bodies, it's really not for the purpose of serving the body. It's the body itself is a vehicle for the soul. So really, it's there for the soul, not for the body. Right? That's the point.
Why then do we have a body? Because you wouldn't be able to do anything. It would be immaterial, wouldn't it?
Right.
Yeah, and why do you have to do anything? Because that's the arena which was decided by God to be the most well equipped for what He desires for free will. Free will. Right? Why do you have to have free will? Right? Right? So God decided that the best way for us to experience it, if you like, I can say Him, is through as a result of our exercising of free will, and the best arena for the challenge of free will is the physical world, with the dichotomy of the spiritual and the physical, and the choices that we have to make in doing so. So that everything that exists, therefore, is really in existence for the purpose of creating that stage upon which this drama of our free will is played out. And therefore everything is really coming, and the main instrument of free will is the soul. Right? So in that way, right, everything that exists is really existing for us, but not our bodies, because our bodies is also a tool for the soul. So that everything is really for the soul and for, and to create, and you're raising a good point, and to create that stage in which the drama of free will is played out, and that's going to affect the soul one way or the other. So that's his point, Mordechai. When we say the world was created for us, he's just pointing out it's not for our bodies, it's for our soul. And even if it seems to be for our body, it's really not. It's ultimately for the soul. V'hitis boinen v'tavchin, I believe it's referring to the soul, shall contemplate and understand. Mi ani asher shamayim va'oretz nivru letzorki. Who am I? Meaning, what must I be, such that things as grandiose as the heavens and earth should be created for me on my account? En ze ki im lihishtabed l'kadosh baruch hu. The proper answer should be, it says only so that I should be subservient to God, as opposed to the other alternative, which we were elaborating a bit yesterday. To make me God. Lahavin ifloisav ulehalalo uleshabcho. To understand His wonders and to sing His praise. Ulule hatoira kedei letzaref ulelaben nishmas odam matzoyrech yesh loi ba'olam. V'chizei svara sha'olam nivra la'anas aguf ha'afel v'hashafel. V'lulei ha'torah, then if it weren't for the Torah, kedei letzaref ulelaben nishmas odam, to purify the soul of a human being. Why doesn't he say, if it weren't for the Torah's ability to purify a Jew? Why does he say a man? Maybe what he means is a Jewish man. Another possibility is that the Torah is there to purify everybody's soul, Jew and non-Jew. Because of course the Torah does not command non-Jews to convert. Non-Jews don't have to convert. Non-Jews can gain a state of righteousness, a position in the world to come as non-Jews. They have to follow the teachings of the Torah for non-Jews, which is quite universalistic, right? Believe in God, don't blaspheme God, don't steal.
So they still have to follow the Torah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's called, they don't follow the Torah in the strict sense of, of the 613 commandments. 7 commandments. But the point is, Judaism doesn't say you have to be Jewish to be a good person, to be a person who can attain salvation, to be a righteous person. Other religions say you have to accept our dogma or you're damned. Judaism doesn't say, Judaism does expect us to accept the dogma, but the point is, Judaism doesn't say you have to be Jewish. We have to accept the teachings of the Torah, which were embodied by and large by Christianity and Islam, which are by and large universal laws. Believe in God, don't steal, don't lie, don't kill, don't commit acts of sexual immorality. So, set up courts, and don't satisfy your desire to eat by tearing a limb off of a living animal. So those are the 7 basic categories. They're details, but if a non-Jew lives his life according to these basically universal laws, because God commanded so in the Torah. So, salvation, righteous Gentile, and the person has a place in the world to come. So, I think perhaps what he's saying, Lule ha-Torah kedei litzaref l'rabbi nishmas adam. If it weren't for the Torah's ability to purify the soul of a person, a Jew according to his requirements, a non-Jew according to his, ma tzorech yesh lo ba'olam. What purpose would there be for a person in the world? Should we really think that the whole purpose of creation was to satisfy people's physical needs? That's the whole thing? All of this grandiose, wonderful, wondrous is also that people should be able to
Eat chocolate.
Yeah. Eat chocolate. It's a bit far-fetched. You could say, well, no, the world wasn't created for people. In fact, it wasn't created at all. It just was, and people are, and that's all there is to it. But, that's pretty silly. The world always was. Where do we find such a thing? Something comes from nothing? Or, what? It never came into being? It just always was? It doesn't seem so likely either. Everything has a beginning, except for God. You want to tell me the world is God? You want to deify the world, so then you become an idolater. But what are your options? The world did come into being, it just came into being spontaneously. So that's an option. Yeah? It came into being spontaneously. And then, of course, macro and micro evolution took place over billions of years. And the world happens to be this wonderfully sophisticated, harmonious balance of, multitude of different systems, macro and micro, all from a chaotic explosion. Boom. What an ordered explosion that was. Yeah. Anyway, but in any case, if we're open to the possibility that there is a creator and the creator brought creation to being, to assume that the creation was made to fulfill our desire for chocolate is probably not so likely. Rather, it's for a much higher purpose than that, and that's what he's outlining here, the purpose of the soul. Do they sell Godiva chocolate in London?
Yeah.
It's kosher?
I don't know, actually. They do Godiva chocolate spread in Belgium.
Is that right? Kosher?
I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
I saw it on the station.
Now that we see that mankind is the selected, elevated, highest of the hierarchy of living things, through the great degree of his wisdom and of his acts and deeds, because all of creation is really subservient to man, and people have the power to learn wisdom and to understand all of the secrets which are quite unfathomable and deep of the world, whether it be in the lower realm or in the upper realm. This is a clear sign that a person's spiritual component, his soul, is something that is eternal, is everlasting. It will be continued after a person dies and enveloped into the spiritual realm. That's tzura b'tzora chaim. As a Torah, if he keeps the Torah. A Jew, if he keeps what's required of a Jew in the Torah. A non-Jew, if he keeps what's required of a non-Jew in the Torah. To what may this be compared? A king who took his servants and collected them into his private chambers, and he showed them the great vast wealth of his coffers, umargolios v'kol genozov, and all of his jewels, and all of his hidden treasures, v'himshilam v'hishlitam al kol zeh, and he gave his servants rulership and governing powers over all of the wealth of his coffers. V'gila lehem soidav, and he revealed to them his secrets. You should know they have secret chambers here, and there are passages over there, and you can tend to these jewels in this way, and those precious gems in that way. V'ziram shiyu imo be'emunah, but he said, I'm revealing all of this to you, but I want you to be faithful. I want you to be committed. I want you to be honest. I want you to be dedicated. V'az yiten lehem toiv v'gedolah, and if so, he'll give them great goodness. V'yanaseh osam kifle kiflaim yoser mima shayu ad achshav, and he'll elevate them many times more than he's elevated them until now. V'zeu yeh lehem lo'is, and this would be a sign, shegila lehem soidosav otzorosav v'himshilam al artzo v'emes. The sign, the proof that this is true is that he has given them memshola, he's given them rulership over his private wealth. This is a sign for them that he's telling them the truth. So God revealed to mankind his greatness, his glory, his splendor. And he revealed through the Torah the great mysteries of creation in the physical and in the non-physical world. And he also gave man the ability to rule over these worlds, both the physical and the spiritual. This will certainly prove and test the great goodness that is waiting for a person in the time to come, the world to come. God says, I'm giving you all of this, and I'm giving you mastery over all of this, and I want you to act loyally and faithfully. And if you do, you should know there's going to be much more for you in store later on. If the king didn't give him rulership over all of this initial wealth, he wouldn't know that what the king is promising about the future is true. But now that he's given him access and rulership, mastery over all of this wealth, it's a sign for him that the king's not playing games. It's the real deal. And he's telling you, this is only part of it. Yeah? Wait till you see what's waiting for you. Basking in the glory of God eternally. Yes, when is this? If he is careful with the service of God. Yeah. When you have a chance, look up what the source for the 70 virgins is. Where does that actually come from?
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, you know, that's the point of it. In the world to come, you can do all that work without tiring, and they still stay virgins. Yeah, but no, I'm wondering if that's really true, or is that just like a false? Is that like what's the word I'm looking for? Just like
Distortion.
Yeah, some distortion. What?
A myth.
A myth. Yeah. Do they really think that, or is that just a myth that people say? I don't know. I really don't know. But in any case, yes. So what's the key to all of this? If he is careful with the service of God. There's another proof that the soul comes from on high. That nobody is ever satisfied with what they've got. He's always looking for more than he's got. If he's got 1,000, he wants 2,000. If he's a minister over one particular province, he wants to be a ruler over another province as well. You have no great person who wants to be even greater. Where does this come from? It's because the soul doesn't cleave Meaning it doesn't connect to. It's not satisfied by these accomplishments. Because the soul is actually looking for things which are much greater than that. These types of things for the soul are just like worthless potatoes. Yeah? It's not going to satisfy the dainty desire of the soul. Because the soul is elevated above all of these things. So how can they possibly please them? Please the soul. Therefore, a person should walk in an elevated stature because of his soul. But all other things go bent over or crawling because they don't have the elevating nature of the soul. Another interesting thing, yeah? Only human beings walk upright. Even apes don't really walk upright. They walk more on all fours. Sometimes they stand up. A bear can stand up too. But they walk on four. Is that right? Apes don't really walk.
I think they do go on their hands sometimes. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean to say, but they don't, I'm saying that they often go on their hands. Yeah, that they walk with their hands, more than they actually walk upright like this. So the author is giving here different implications for the soul. The first, he slipped here two for the price of one. The first one was that a proof that the soul is elevated is that people are never satisfied. And he says that the reason why people are never satisfied is because they're trying to attain satisfaction, which things that the soul is not satisfied by. And that pushes the person to want more and more satisfaction. But like Mick Jagger said, yeah, I can't get no satisfaction. Because people try and get satisfaction. The problem is they're not trying the right things. Well, none of that's worked. Let's try this. Wow, this is great.
Okay, time's up.
Time's up. Oh, I feel horrible. It's worse than I was when I started. Let's try this. Time's up. Oh, got a headache. Because none of it's going to work. And people try. When they try everything, so they start getting desperate. And they bring out the big guns. Yeah? They crack out the big guns. It doesn't work. Because it's all trying to satisfy the soul with things that the soul doesn't have any delight in. The Torah. Wonderful. Happy again. I feel dislocated. Wow, what am I going to learn Torah? Yeah, but it's healthy. It doesn't hurt anybody. It's just good for the soul. It's good for other people. It's good for yourself, for other people. It's good for the world, as long as you don't, misuse it or abuse it or distort it. But the Torah is good. I think that the Mesilas Yesharim brings the analogy of a princess who wandered into the woods and became lost there, and she couldn't find her way back to the palace until finally she was taken in by a peasant who lived in the woods, and the peasant tried his very best to take care of the princess, but all he had was potatoes to feed her and coarse cloth to clothe her with. And she was never happy. Why? Because she was raised in a natural place to be in the palace, where she's fed with all of the best dainties in the world, and she's clothed with the most, exquisite and extraordinary clothing. So the peasant can't do anything for her. He really can't do anything for her. So he said, that's the soul. The soul is from the palace. The soul becomes distanced from the palace into the woods of this world. But any pleasure that you try and give to the soul when it's in the woodlands of this world is like potatoes and sackcloth. It doesn't satisfy the needs. of the soul. The soul naturally needs the types of things which are to be found in the palace. And that's why Torah, mitzvos for a Jew are part of that raiment and part of that, that food from the palace which is in this world. But without that, a person's going to be singing what Mick sang. Yeah? You just can't get no satisfaction. So that was the first point. The second, I would just add to what the authors, that was what I want to say, that the author's making the point that we do not experience, he says the fact that people are always looking to gain more is an indication that there's a soul. And the explanation, according to the author, is because the soul is not satisfied with what people are trying to provide it with. So people are looking for more and more and more. He says that since they're looking to satisfy the needs of the soul in the wrong way, that's why they're constantly, wandering through different types of pleasures. I would add maybe a corollary to that, which is explaining it that way is kind of in a negative way, insofar as the soul's trying to gain satisfaction, but that's not being provided for. I would say a similar idea, which is that another reason why people are constantly looking to gain more and more and more is because there is something ingrained within the soul pushing it towards, giving it the impetus towards perfection, improvement in perfection. And that's another reason why people are always looking for more. The problem is, that it's translated into moving forward in material ways as opposed to in spiritual ways. And ultimately, the result of that is that people are not going to be satisfied because they're trying to realize their potential for perfection in material ways which are inherently imperfect and therefore not naturally pleasing to the soul. But my point, and I think it's slightly, perhaps subtly different than what the way the author is saying, is that there's actually something inherent within the soul propelling people towards perfection, because that's our purpose, to improve. If that propensity for perfection is directed in the right way, so then a person will improve in the spiritual direction. But if he doesn't know that's an option for him, naturally that kind of impetus is going to be expressed in the plane of operation that he's used to, which is the material world, right? So what I'm kind of refining, at least what I understand the author to be saying, is that even before the discussion about whether what a person does is going to be fulfilling for the soul or not, there's something inherent with the soul which pushes it towards improvement anyway. It can either express in the spiritual or the physical. If not in the spiritual, it'll be in the physical, just because it's the propensity of the soul to want to improve. What happens is, if it's expressed in that realm, the soul won't ultimately feel satisfied by that. Yeah. The way the author is explaining, I understand, like the impetus to gain more is because the soul is not being satisfied, so it wants more and more and more. I'm adding that I think that the soul has a natural inclination to want to perfect itself. And that will naturally be expressed in whatever realm the person is operating in. The result of doing it in the physical realm is that the soul won't be satisfied. He seems to be explaining that the lack of satisfaction is what keeps the soul pushing the person forward. And I'm suggesting no, there's something which naturally pushes the soul forward. If it's expressed in the physical world, the result will be a lack of fulfillment. The second point he made here was that another proof for the existence of the soul is the fact that in addition to the fact that he said earlier that human beings have the intelligence and the ability to control their environment, physiologically speaking, they're the only organism that walks upright. And that's through the power of the soul. Although the living things that don't have that. Trees, what about trees? Where do they fit in? Trees are pretty upright.
They don't do much moving though.
Yeah, they're not really mobile unless they're, yeah. But the Torah does say that Adamu etz hasadeh. It's interesting. The Torah compares human beings to trees.
Ah.
The author has told us that trees don't have souls, and according to this, human beings stand upright because they do have souls.
Yeah.
I don't think and trees don't have the types of souls that we're talking about here. So, but it nevertheless is interesting that they are upright, and the Torah does compare human beings to trees. And physically speaking, I've noticed there's an interesting connection between humans and trees. We're like yin yangi. I mean, they breathe what we exhale, and we breathe what they exhale. So we're in this kind of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation with trees. You know what I'm saying? Right? We inhale their oxygen, and they inhale our carbon dioxide.
So what if there were no people around? Oh no, no carbon dioxide.
Yeah, I just mean it's interesting that what we exhale is used by the trees to make more oxygen, which we inhale. Right? And what we you see that there's this interesting kind of symbiotic relationship between trees.
So the Torah compares. What does the Torah do with trees and us?
The Gemara says that Hadamu etz hasadeh. A person is like a tree of the field. And there are interesting Torah ideas which kind of find connections between the two.
Does the source of that go back to like Adam and Eve and the tree?
Very good. Yeah, I never thought about that. But Adam in the garden, and the garden is talking about being full of trees, and there was a specific tree.
And the Midrash says that the tree sinned as well.
Right.
The ground sinned.
That's right.
And it brought forth
the tree, yeah.
the trees.
Yeah. And man sinned. There's a very nice this combination, this parallel. Kabbalah talks about also.
Trees grow and humans grow. Sort of
A lot of things.
up.
Okay, but that's the point here. I'm saying this because he said human beings grow upward. We grow upright. There's another kind of inverse relationship that's understood. The trees are kind of rooted in the ground, and they branch upward. Human beings are rooted in the spiritual realm and branch downward, meaning the soul is rooted on high, but we reach downward. So there's an intermingling of the branches, too. And it maybe it's worth thinking about a little bit when you want to do your PhD.
So don't cut trees anymore.
Yes, you're not allowed. The Torah says you're not allowed to cut trees.
Really?
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, I think that's the actual context within which the verse is mentioned. Yeah, don't cut down trees when you're waging war and besieging a city. Don't cut down the fruit trees, because a person is a fruit of the tree. Excuse me, a person is a tree of the field.
Wow.
Yeah, don't cut down trees.
So we need to save the rainforests.
Definitely. Yes, definitely, for sure. And doing so saves ourselves. Yeah. All right.
Wow.
Oh, we should just finish off this paragraph though. So on Reish Nun Bet, the third line. Therefore a person goes upright because of his soul. Others go on their bellies. Since the soul comes from on high, under the God's throne of glory, Alken haguf shehi shruya bo, the body in which the soul is infused, yesh bo dimyon shel kol olam. The human body itself is like a microcosm for the entire world. Valken nikra ha'adam olam koton, and therefore a human being is called a small world, meaning a universe. Every individual is like a universe of its own. Why? Because his own body is the seat for his soul. And the soul comes from the throne of glory. So that the body itself actually is a manifestation of the soul, and the body itself becomes like even the body itself becomes like a mini universe. Hanashama doima lebayra, the soul is like its creator, that's God. V'guf dome la'olam hatachton v'elyon, and the body is like the world. So just like the soul infuses the body, so God's presence infuses the world. God's presence in the world is like a soul to the body of the world. And therefore you see there a correlation between the soul and Hashem, right? And a person's body in the world, and the human body therefore is something to be taken also seriously as well. And we can't elaborate on this, and I don't think we would either if we had time, but there is a Kabbalistic principle or idea which is called the Sephiros, the 10 Sephiros. There's 10 spiritual, let's say, junctures of divine energy, and these junctures are radiated from God onto the world, onto the pinnacle of creation, that's mankind, in the soul, and also leaving its imprint on the body. So that these 10 sephiros are viewed as actually being mirrored or reflected onto our physiological bodies as well. Very deep concept. All right, let's let you guys end here and get to the next class.